Okay, sorry about this. Right. Okay. So where were we? We said yeah. We said we have an ID. Do you know what we're talking about? Talking about second normal form. Yes. So we have an ID for the student, and we said the student is in a session, and the session belongs or define belongs to a room. Okay. And then, so we have this one student, second student, well, the same student. So we'll have the second student whose ID is 2, okay, and let's say he's also in session 1, same session as before, and because it's the same session, so it will be also room A because obviously it's the same session, right? Okay, I think that's enough. Now, just note something. Sorry, let me get this. Sorry, I forgot that. When I get distracted, it does affect my. I cannot think. I can't do like multitasking and stuff. So if I'm engaged with something, I lose concentration. Right. Okay. So yeah, let's get back to this then. Right. So we have this table. Okay, ID, session, and room, and okay. So we said that obviously this table is already in first normal form. But we have this problem here that the non-key attributes depend on PK or the primary key. Now, this is not the case in this table. Why? As you can see, this is, for example, is a non-key attribute, right? It does not only depend on the. This is a primary key. Okay, the ID is primary key, but note something. The room actually depends on the session and the ID. Look, so session 1 in this table always defines A. Session 1 always defines A. Also, the ID will define the room. So if I put ID 1 against the room, right? So I will have A and B, okay? And if I put ID 2, I will get A. So basically, now the ID defines the room, but also the session defines the room. So the room here, the room attribute, does not only depend on the primary key, and that's wrong. It shouldn't. It should only depend on the primary key, which is this one is a primary key. Session is not a primary key. Okay, as you can see, session session here is 1, here is 1. So it's not a primary key, right? So this condition is not met in this situation. So we need to convert this table into its second normal form. So we'll divide this into two tables. We'll have a table that contains the ID with the session, right? And we'll say, okay, then we'll have ID 1 defines, for example, the what's called session 1, and also ID 1 defines session 3, and ID 2 defines session 1. Okay, so that's the first table. The second table, we can also have the primary key, which is the ID, as a primary key, and we can say okay, then ID against the room. Oh no, the ID can have the session. Sorry, can have the session will be better. So we'll have session against the room, right? So session, for example, session 1 defines room A. Session 3 defines room B, Okay. Oh, what am I doing? Sorry. Right. So session 1 defines room A, and session 3 defines room B. Now in this case, obviously one, we do not have to repeat one again from here, because that's it. This one is exactly the same as this one, so we can only have it once. We don't need to duplicate it again. So session 1 will define room A, session 3 will define room B. Now in this case, session is the primary key. In this table, session is the primary key, and therefore the room depends on the session. The rooms depends on the session, which is the primary key. So now, and the first table, the session is not the key here. The ID is the primary key, and session depends on the ID. So we have converted our table into second normal form, right? Let's move on to the third normal form, 3NF. Now the condition for the 3NF, again, it has already should already be in second normal form. So this is the condition. It's a continuation from the second normal form. Also, we must have no closure. What do we mean by a closure? What do we mean by a closure is that if, for example, A defines B, B defines C, therefore A defines C. It's one of the functional dependencies rules, which we will come to discuss later. It is also called transitivity. Okay, so this is one of the rules that we will discuss later. Okay, right. So we'll have a look at. Let's have a look at an example. Okay, if we. Right. Okay, we'll take this example. If, for example, again, we have a student ID, we also have, for example, mark for the student in a particular course, and we have the grade. Okay, now let's say student ID 1, his mark or her mark is 76, and the grade obviously is C, because it is defined by the mark, right? Let's say student 2 got, for example, 91, grade is A. Student 3 got the mark 64, which is a grade D. Now note something, that the ID defines the mark defines the grade, therefore the ID defines the grade. Now this is not in a third normal form, as we cannot have a closure dependencies, right? As we said earlier. So what can we do here? We can, for example, again divide this table into two. We can have ID against the mark. So we say, okay, then student 1 got 76, student 2 got 91, and student 3 got 64. That's our first table, right? We can also have, we can have also ID with the grade. Okay, so we have again student 1 with the grade C, student 2 with the grade A, and student 3 with the grade D. Okay, so now we converted our table into a third normal form. Okay, I think it's easy enough. Right. Based on the third normal form, we have the Boy's code normal form. Okay, so another type of normalization is the Boy's code normal form. It's referred to as BCNF, Boy's code normal form, right? Boy's code normal form has the two conditions. It's pretty much as a third normal form, but it has these conditions. Again, first of all, it has to be already, the table has to already to be in the third normal form, so no closure dependencies in here. Also, the second condition, important condition, if for example if G defines H, right? That means G has to be a super key for all the attributes. So G has to be, this is a U, G has to be a super key. Okay, in this case, G has to be the super case. Super key. So G has to be a super key. Let's take an example. Right. Okay. If we have these dependencies, right. A defines BCD. Okay. BC define. First of all, let's say that we have a relation or a table R has the following attributes A, B, C, D. Okay, where A defines BCD, BC defines AD, and let's say D defines B. Note something, that the first one actually satisfies the Boy's code normal form. Why? A defines all other attributes. Okay, have a look. We only have A, B, C, D. A defines all the other attributes, meaning that as this condition is yes says, G has to be super key. So A is a super key for all the relationship. So that's okay. That's good. Again, BC is also a super key because BC actually defines the rest of the attributes. Okay, so BC, we've got BC here, defines A and D. So defines whatever left in this relation. So this is also in a Boy's code normal form. So we have no problem with this. The only problem we have is this, right? D only defines B. So D is not a super key. It only defines B. So we need to do something about this. Right. Let's highlight our keys. So the keys are A and BC. Our keys, this is a key and this is a key. So our keys are A and BC. Let's break this into two, meaning that okay then we'll have this that is problematic. We'll break it into we'll put it in a table for it by itself. Let's call it R1 that has D and B together. Now D is a super key in this table. Okay, so R1 is a table, so this is good. Okay, this is what we want, right? So D is a super key in this table, and the rest we put them in another table. Call it R2. We'll have R2 can either have A, B, C, or it can also have A, C, D, right? By eliminating one of them. So R2 can have A, B, C, or it can have A, C, D, right? Okay, let's work this out then. Now, okay, now looking at the parameters that we have, A defines CD, okay, right? If we eliminate B, right? And also C, because if you see B is not a key here, okay? C defines, okay, C from here, right? Defines AD. Okay, so if we're looking at this, right? So A defines CD and C defines AD. Okay, so we can conclude that this, we want this table. We do not want this table, as we don't need the V in here. Okay, so these are super keys that define everything else. Okay, so we have super keys that define everything else in table R2. So we have divided our one table, which was A, B, C, D, that had a problem where D here was not a super key. So we divided it into two tables that has R1, D defines B, and also we don't need this. We can have in the other table we can have A, C, D, and note that from the parameters, A defines C, D, okay, and C defines AD, right? So these two are in Boy's code normal form. Okay, easy enough, I think. Right. What we'll do, since we talked about dependencies, as we can see in this example, as we talked about dependencies, before I talk about the fourth normal form, we'll have an example on a dependency, but I will have it in another part, just again to minimize the file size. So I'll just split this into another part. So I'll see you in a minute.